A very good evening to all our viewers. Welcome to this week's first edition of the Evening Review. My name is Trevor Njebela, your host. Let's have a look at some of the headlines that are going to be in tomorrow's Namibian Sun. Those are some of the headlines that are in tomorrow's print edition of Namibian Sun. You must grab yourself a copy and read more about those. Tonight on the show, we are welcoming back Ranga Haikali. He is president of the Namibia Football Association, to engage us on the current happenings at the association, including his purported dismissal. Ranga, welcome back to the show. Thank you for making time.
Thank you.
Yeah, sure. Exco of the Executive Committee of NFA says you are suspended. What is your take on? I mean, is it? Are you on suspension? Did you accept the suspension? What is your take on that?
Let me give you a background.
Yeah.
There was a properly scheduled and constitutional meeting scheduled of the Exco, scheduled for the 18th and 19th of June. That meeting could unfortunately not take place because of the COVID restrictions that were put in place there. And after the lifting of the restrictions, the Exco started engaging to call for the Exco that was postponed from June to take place. On that June meeting that was postponed, there were specific agenda items, one being the Secretary General's position, and many other agenda items like the advertisements of positions for all the coaches, the national men's team, Brave Warriors, the the Brave Gladiators, the under 23, under 20. So that process has to be run and conducted by an independent outsourced company to basically run that. Specifically with the Secretary General's position, who in terms of the Constitution is an employee. He's not an elected position or person. It's an employee, reports to the President. So only the President can recommend his appointment or his dismissal. So there have been a lot of things that were happening, awarding of contracts beyond his authority and not reporting that to the Exco. There were policies for procurement and recruitment and selection processes that were breached. Two specific examples. A contract of 2.3 million was awarded for IT equipment. Excuse me. The Secretary General awarded this contract on the 15th of November. 2 weeks thereafter, on the 3rd of December, we had an Exco meeting. None of these awards or contract was reported to the Exco, neither to me as President. The other example is in December, an advert for a position was placed under WhatsApp, ran for 4 days. The very same December, when the office was closed and everybody is on vacation, the SG writes a email to the Exco making a recommendation for an appointment. We have a HR company that is outsourced to run and advertise these positions, whether it's for coaches, whether it's for staff members. How could we run an advert over 4 days on a WhatsApp? So I wrote a letter after the June 18, 19 meeting could not take place, to the EXCO and said there are these allegations of these transgressions. Can you please explain? The next moment, the Secretary General ran to the lawyers, questioning my authority as president to discipline him or to ask him to answer those questions. Then, after several attempts and deadlines and extensions, I then, in terms of my powers as the president, constituted charges against the SG for failing to do that. And I want to make it clear that these allegations and the charges are allegations and charges for the SG to be given an opportunity to be heard in the form of a disciplinary hearing to be conducted by an independent senior counsel or advocate that is not involved in the football structure. And I want to mention again that the Secretary General should be assumed innocent until proven otherwise. And he is a contracted employee, and he is employed in terms of the Labor Act of Namibia. So that should be handled separately as a labor relation case in terms of the law. Now, funny enough, the SG saw these charges, saw these letters that I wrote to him to explain. In confidence, letters were handed to him. I called him, he came, he signed acknowledgement of the letter. The next day, he started distributing these letters to the EXCO. He distributed it to the social media, which was a confidential letter for him just to state his case. He then orchestrated a division amongst the EXCO. After the restriction of the lockdown restriction, a member of the EXCO, Mr. Peter Njulu, wrote a letter pre-drafted for him to the Secretary General to call for a executive committee meeting.
What is Njulu's position there?
Njulu is just an EXCO member.
Yeah, okay. He's not president or what?
He's not president.
Or vice president.
He's not vice president or first vice president or second vice president. And the EXCO members on the email started asking, since when does an ordinary member of the EXCO call for meetings? The Constitution makes provision that if a meeting is called or request for a calling of a meeting to the president is made, and the president failed within 21 days to call for another meeting or for a meeting, the other EXCO members can then convene and have that meeting. So what then happened is, after this letter by Mr. Njulu, the SG wrote a cover notification of an EXCO meeting on the 13th and 14th of August. By then, I, as president, in terms of my powers, after having received all the consents and the request for a postponed meeting of June to be called, I called for a meeting on the 20th and the 21st of August. The first call was for a meeting on the 6th of August, then the other said the 13th, and we have got 14 days to suggest agenda items. What I then saw when I saw the correspondence and the inputs from all the members, I took those 14 days into consideration. So I called for a meeting on the 21st instead of the illegally constituted or called meeting by the Secretary General and the one EXCO member who don't have those powers in terms of the Constitution, that was called for the 13th. I then stated in my notice for the meeting that the old agenda item of the June postponed meeting will still stand because they are still relevant, plus 2 agenda items of the appointments of coaches, which came because the recruitment and selection process and the interviews already took place. And I then asked any other members of the EXCO if they can suggest any other points. Without any mandate, unconstitutional, the Secretary General requested for the meeting of the 13th based on the request from Mr. Njulo. They had their illegal meeting. It was not properly constituted. And they took the decision to suspend me. I never was asked to answer any questions on those allegations. I just read of the suspensions. Yeah.
That is the background. Now, I saw one of the reports in the papers at the time was to say that Haikali is accused of corruption in that he instructed NFA Secretariat to organize a contract with PC Center for IT Services, a company in which he is a shareholder. You also spoke about something similar. Is it a different company that Mr. Cosmos hired, or you wanted the one that he hired to be replaced with the one where you hold shares?
Sorry, we are on public. I'm laughing not because I undermine your question, but it's very funny.
Yeah.
The facts are, I am a 40% shareholder in PC Center.
Yes.
At the time of taking office, the NFA had a non-functional email domain. Everybody was using their own private Gmail, Yahoo, or whatever email. Emails were leaked. We received a letter from FIFA, from the regional office in Johannesburg, asking all the MAs or the member associations to improve their IT and email security. Since there was nothing functioning, the domain was not functional. You received emails coming from China, written in Chinese characters, and everybody was just posting anything on the NFA domain or portal as whatever. PC Center, or I, through PC Center, offered to administer this for free. Up to today, PC Center was not paid a single cent for the administration of the domain. Then I received a letter on the 3rd of September 2019 from the office where 4 companies were asked to quote for the provision of IT equipment. One of those companies was PC Center. When I saw this, and I have got the proof, I said PC Center should be removed. I declared my interest. I copied FIFA in, and I said they must not be considered at all. The remaining 3 companies, either you assess them on their ability in terms of our procurement policy, or you advertise this tender because it's significant for the broader public, except of PC Center. And ever since that was put on record, PC Center was never considered. The very same, one of the 3 companies that were quoted was awarded this contract for 2.3 million. The Secretary General never exposed that. If you can go to the NFA office and look at any of those equipment, PC Center is a Apple product supplier. There is no single Apple products bought or purchased from PC Center for the NFA.
I see. I'll hold that thought for me, Ranga. We'll go for a quick break and then we'll come and continue this exciting conversation.
Yes.
We continue with Ranga Haikali. He is the president of the Namibia Football Association, who is fighting his suspension from the association. So, Ranga, so among those three companies that eventually were in the run, are you saying that the manner in which one of them was picked was then also questionable, and that was one of the issues that you had with the Secretary General?
I stated that there were 4 companies,
Yes,
inclusive of PC Center.
yes,
On my request, and I have the proof of that, I said PC Center must not even be considered, not even be shortlisted, must not even be awarded any contract, even if they were the cheapest, even if they were the most competitive, based on my conflict of interest. And I have that in writing.
Yeah.
And the SG was also copied in. And he knows that that is the truth. The remaining companies, I only came to hear in February 2021 that the SG has already written a contract award of 2.3 million to one of the 3 companies. That was in February 2021.
Yeah.
That letter that the SG awarded the contract was dated 15th November 2020. 2 weeks thereafter, we had an executive committee meeting. It was never disclosed, it was never reported, it was never even verbally reported to us that, can you condone the awarding of this contract? I had to do it because of this and these reasons. I did not have a mandate, but the time was running out because we had to implement this, whatever, anything of that nature. It was not done. How does PC Center feature then in?
Indeed. Now, speaking of conflict of interest, another accusation that supposedly justified your suspension was that Haikali is also accused of organizing a contract for another company that he's a shareholder in, Africa Personal Services, for fumigation of the NFA building, I suppose. What do you say to that one?
Before I answer on that, there is another fumigation case.
Yeah.
The NFA offices were closed.
Yeah.
A staff member who works for the NFA was awarded a contract to fumigate the office. That company never had a license to fumigate. They went and bought sanitizing or disinfectant. They sprayed it on the walls and they dirtied the wall. That is according to the SG. I am not running the administration of the office to appoint contracts or companies. And he was complaining that we cannot use this company because they are dirtying the walls with all the chemicals that they are spraying on the wall. Then coming to this accusation, I was driving on a Friday to the farm. The SG called me on my phone. He told me there is a company that is quoted for the second time when the office was closed because of a COVID case. The office had to be closed and they had to fumigate the office. One company quoted 63,000. But there is a staff member, the very same staff member, who have quoted 51,000. Now you can see the games that have been played. This is very high, this is very low. On a Friday afternoon, I'm busy driving. The SG calls me. Oh, it was a long weekend. I then said, please hold on, I will call somebody and then come back to you. I called a company by the name of APS, in which I am again a shareholder and a director. That company told me they are not going to charge more than 5,000. Now look at 63,000, 51,000. This company is asking not more than 5,000. They indeed went, APS. They give a certificate that this building is safe and clear as a registered company. I give instruction that that company must invoice me in my personal capacity and I will pay. The NFA was never invoiced to pay for that disinfection. But it just tells you how the people were misusing funds in the NFA by awarding contracts to companies with inflated prices, I don't know for what reason, and not following the procedure. Now I'm being accused, I'm benefiting. That money was paid by me and not by the NFA. The next accusation that I applied for overdraft for the NFA.
I was going to go to that one. Thank you for taking the lead. Yes.
I don't have any authority to apply for an overdraft. I don't run the administration. In fact, it's the SG. And I've got documentary proof where the SG wrote a letter in an email form applying for a 2 million overdraft from First National Bank, where I am a director. Through the client relation person, I was not involved in that. He submitted the following documents, or the one document. That document was a letter that is under my signature, dated 25 March 2020. That letter is saying, this letter is informing you as the bank that me, Ranga Haikali, was elected at the recently held Congress as president, who's the second vice president, and we want to change, the president, the first vice president and the second vice president, and we want to change the signatories to that account to replace Ms. Hilda Basona Munjembo, to replace the other NC members, Mr. Mati and Gabi Arens, who were the NC members with signatories to that account. It's a letter that is more than a year old that the SG submitted as an application for an overdraft. The bank said, thank you for your letter and your application. We have indeed noted the urgency of your request for an overdraft. We are going to load the overdraft facility on the banking system. But please, before you draw the money or before you can do that, we need a constitution of the NFA. We need a resolution from the EXCO authorizing you as SG to apply for this overdraft. And after receiving all this information, we are going to grant you. And I have proof of that. The EXCO never mandated the Secretary General to apply for such an overdraft. He is the one who applied for that overdraft indeed, and not Ranga Haikali as president. Now there is a charge that I apply for overdraft.
Yeah, I hear you. The last of the allegations, I think, that carries a bit of weight is where you are saying that you initiated renovations of an office of the Oshikoto Regional Football League without approval and knowledge of ESCO. What do you say to that?
I don't know whether you only follow the Namibian Sun on Facebook or social media.
This is from the Namibian, actually.
Okay.
Yeah.
Facebook was running a dilapidated and unrenovated office of Oshikoto, which had one door, no windows. The paint was off, and it's written NFA Oshikoto Regional Office.
Oh, I saw that.
You saw that?
Yes.
Then some prominent people in the society, one being a minister, one being a former football leader, and others said, Mr. President, this thing that is running about one of your affiliate members' office being dilapidated is reflecting back bad on your leadership, which was true. I then, as Ranga Haikali, as an individual, instructed somebody to go and see the chairperson of the Oshikoto League, Mr. Koko, and ask him whether it will be okay if we do an assessment of the cost that will be involved to renovate that office. The chairperson or the chairman of the Oshikoto Regional Office agreed. We got quotations of all the materials from Build It.
Yeah.
I paid it out of my own pocket, out of my resources. I didn't use a single cent from the Namibia Football Association. I negotiated with the contractors or the artisans, the painters, the builders, and whatever who did the work on a price, and I paid them directly out of my own resources. I didn't need to get permission from the EXCO. It was a gesture of goodwill. I helped many other people, whether it's bursaries, whether it's renovations or any other things, if they help me and there is really a need, a social need. And I, as president of the Namibia Football Association, would not want to be seen that anything that is related to a member of the NFA or a member of the NFA being seen on social media with a genuine need to replenish that office. If you can go to that office now, if you can look at the photographs of the renovations that were done, for me it might be seen as insignificant, but for the members who were having meetings or who are still having meetings in that region, it's an improvement on something. And that is one of the members. They do not depend from the NFA, they do not depend from the government, whether it's through the Ministry of Sports or the Sports Commission or any other structure to run their affairs in their region. They went to a businessman and asked for a piece of land to build their office. It was built many, many years ago. Yes, they did not have the money to renovate. And I thought, as a gesture of goodwill, I am going to do that out of my own pocket, not using the NFA money. Now it's a conflict of interest, it's corruption, it's whatever.
I hear you. I think that's very clear. Now, you held a press conference recently where you informed the press that you've engaged FIFA about your suspension, and I think if I read correctly that your suspension has been lifted. What is the status of what is your status in NFA right now?
After the events of the unconstitutional meeting of the 13th, 14th of August, I received a letter on a blank page signed by an email from the first vice president using a Telecom Namibia email, his work email, notifying me of my suspension and the charges. A few days before that, there was a press conference by the NFA sharing with the public the outcome of their illegal meeting, announcing the caretaker coach for the World Cup qualifiers and others. At that press conference, no mention was made of my suspension. Then the letter from the first vice president on a blank page, when they realized the mistake, the next day, the Secretary General, it was a Thursday, I think the 16th or the 18th of August, another letter came in a formal letterhead of the NFA, notifying the public that I am suspended, and that letter is backdated the 13th of August. No letter was written to me. No charges were presented to me. And I want to make it categorically clear that I am not above the law. I'm not above the NFA Constitution. If there are any charges against me, let those charges be given to me. Let me given the opportunity of audio altem or partem rule to also state my case. And then the EXCO, the remainder of the EXCO can deliberate on that. But what is happening here is the SG trying to divide the EXCO, using the first vice president to avoid the charges and the allegations against him. And I'm repeating, allegations against him that are being held in terms of the Labor Act of Namibia by suspending a duly elected president. We know what happened in the previous regime, where the former president, Mr. Franz Bidi, was suspended by an EXCO.
Yeah.
It led to Namibia being suspended as a country, a member of FIFA, and the normalization committee being instituted. What the Secretary General and the first Vice President is playing is exactly the same to let the country, in a very short period after the first normalization, to again be banned or be suspended by FIFA. So in that regard, FIFA wrote a letter to all the parties and said, we need information before the 25th of August. No further meetings, no further press conference, no further decisions should be held until you comply to this. I did my part on the 24th of August. The Secretary General reported to FIFA on the 25th, and last week, Tuesday, FIFA had one-on-one meetings with me, myself as president, and themselves. And then that afternoon, a meeting was held with the 11 EXCO members, which includes me as the president, and FIFA made it clear that they don't recognize or they don't approve of that decision to suspend an elected president. And all the EXCO members who tuned in, all of them tuned in, now nobody was excluded or called into the Zoom meeting, were told that Ranga Haikali is still the president. He was the president as elected. He is still the president. And we are directing you as EXCO members to call for a meeting to solve your differences. Failure to do that, FIFA will consider the drastic measures that they don't want to consider, as was previously done with the previous regime. So for that, I have called for a meeting this coming weekend, the 1st and the 2nd of October, to try and solve our problems or our differences.
Yes.
I, as president, am not immune to diverse opinions, but let us separate the squabbles and the disunity amongst the EXCO members and the SG's disciplinary procedures to be run separately, because that one of the EXCO is under the constitution of the NFA and the FIFA constitution, whilst the SG is in terms of the labor court. But let us assume him innocent until proven otherwise.
Indeed.
Yeah.
Ranga, in the interest of time, we'll end here, but thanks for sharing your time with us and for shedding light on all these matters.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. That was Ranga Haikali. He is president of the Namibia Football Association. He is saying that he's back in the thick of things after an engagement with FIFA. And as a matter of fact, what is interesting for me tonight is when he says that he's convening a meeting for this coming weekend. Let's see if it takes place. Thank you.